In the early morning hours of August 13, 2018, in Frederick, Colorado, the seemingly ordinary town of Frederick, Colorado, became the focus of an international media frenzy in August 2018, when a seemingly typical suburban family was torn apart by an act of incomprehensible violence. Christopher Lee Watts, a 33-year-old oil field operator, was arrested for the murders of his pregnant wife, Shanann, who was also pregnant with their son Nico and their two young daughters, Bella and Celeste. Despite earning nationwide infamy for the stark contrast between the family's public image and their private discourse, one question rested on the minds of investigators, analysts, and victims' families alike. Why did Chris murder his loving family? This is the chilling case of the Watts family murder. In 2018, Chris and Shanann Watts, locals of North Carolina, who had moved out to Colorado for Chris's job at a petroleum company, appeared to be living the American dream with their two daughters in the serene and picturesque town of Frederick. At 1:48 a.m. on Monday, August 13th, Shanann was driven home by a colleague, Nicole Atkinson, from a business trip to Arizona. Chris had been home with their daughters over the weekend, and all seemed well with the girls at home and Chris at work. However, mere hours would turn the quiet suburban life of the Watts on its head. Just later that day, Shanann and the girls would be reported missing by Atkinson after Shanann missed a doctor's appointment and failed to respond to messages. The police were called, and Chris initially played the role of a concerned husband. A Frederick police officer arrived to conduct a welfare check at about 1:40 p.m., where Chris would grant permission to search the home, and only the family dog would be found unharmed and alone. The officer would discover Shanann's purse containing her keys and her medicine, followed by her phone and her car in the garage, with the girls' car seats still in it. Disturbingly, the only trace of any potential lead to where Shanann could have gone was her abandoned wedding ring, left beside the couple's bed. On August 14th, the FBI and CBI would both join the investigation and set up an urgent and immediate search party for the missing family. Initially, just as before, Chris played the innocent and concerned husband and told police that he had no idea where his family might be and that he had not seen his wife since 5:15 a.m. the previous day when he left for work. Repeatedly, he gave multiple public televised news interviews and pleaded for the return of his wife and daughters with as much emotion that was to be expected in such a time. However, just a day later, on Wednesday, August 15th, Chris Watts' innocence was quickly dismantled. As the investigation unfolded, the evidence quickly began to mount against Chris. Despite his initial claims of innocence, his story unraveled under police scrutiny. He would be administered a polygraph test to ensure he was telling the truth and that no suspect behavior could be ruled against him, and he subsequently failed. He then confessed that he had strangled Shanann and soon after smothered his daughters, revealing chilling details of how he disposed of their bodies at his workplace. Shanann buried in a shallow grave in the dirt, and the girls shoved forcefully through an 8-inch hatch of a crude oil tank. His initial story was even more sickening. He had murdered Shanann because she had smothered both their daughters in their sleep, despite no previous motivation to ever do so. Just as quickly, this alibi was swiftly torn apart, and his guilt of killing both parties. As the media circulation devolved into a maelstrom of speculation and legal proceedings began, Chris Watts' motives for the murders were revealed as complex and multifaceted. The family's life was not so peaceful as everyone had first believed. Long-standing financial strains, including a bankruptcy in 2015, marital discord caused chiefly by Chris's outlandishly self-concerned behavior, multiple hookups and escorts where Chris had dated his partners for months on end, and an ongoing affair and romantic relationship with a co-worker, which according to phone records had gotten quite serious, created a toxic mix that culminated in Chris attempting to take a far shorter and monstrous way out of his family life than divorce. Media coverage and public fascination with the case highlighted societal obsessions with crime and punishment, while expert analyses attempted to dissect Watts's psychological state and the dynamics of family annihilators, Watts himself eventually being dissected as an emotionally inadequate narcissist who often bottled up his stress, which contributed and inevitably led to the copious amounts of resentment, bitterness, and rage it took to commit the murders. Later that year, on November 6th, 2018, Chris Watts pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased body to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences. Later that year, on December 3rd, he would be moved from a local Colorado prison due to security concerns, likely attempts on his life made by other inmates, and moved to Dodge Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison in Walpen, Wisconsin. He remains there to this day, continuing to serve out his sentence with significant amounts of fan mail, many negative and hateful, some highly erotic and obsessive. The Watts family case has prompted discussions on the signs of family violence, the psychological profiles of family killers, and the profound loss experienced by the surviving family members and community. If you enjoyed this video, kindly leave a like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.